Hello everyone, and welcome to this session. I'm going to be talking a little bit about Server 2019, the storage migration services, doing a real quick look on it. The title that you saw up on the screen wasn't right. This is the right one behind me here. So first thing is, my name is Mike Nelson. I'm a solutions architect with Rubrik. You can reach me at any of these places right here. I'm a Microsoft MVP, CTP, and a V expert. And that's a really big fish that we caught. No, really, that's Fishing Hall of Fame. You know that. So let's talk about SMS. Now, anybody remember what SMS really is? Systems Management Server, right? No. SMS now is Storage Migration Services. So when we talk about SMS, we talk about you have a Server 2003, 2008, or 2012. Why can't or why won't you upgrade? And a lot of the reasons that I hear is around, hey, you know, it's really complicated. Our files are a mess. We've got home directories that are literally all over the place. We've got folks that are throwing, you know, MP3s and MP4s and everything. We have to try and get off the old technology and get onto the new technology, right? All kinds of different things that are causing problems. So what gets missed when you actually try and do a conversion from moving your files from one location or several locations into a new one? There's a lot of things. Along with the files, you get the ownership of the files, permissions, whether they're encrypted, the attributes, all this stuff, in use. You lose all the share properties. You have to remember what those are. You have to extract them. You have to re-add them. The network settings. How are you going to do that actual conversion from one server to another without a big disruption, right? Then you get the names and the Active Directory. That's another thing you have to deal with. If you're only doing your file shares in work groups, or you have DFS or RDFS, then it's a little bit more streamlined, but it's still difficult to get it all consolidated. So, and then there's always not knowing what you don't know. That's, you know, a lot of folks that I know from a sysadmin standpoint, what'll happen is they'll get 3/4 of the way through the project, they're ready to do the cutover, and then all of a sudden they're like, crap, you know, I forgot about this, or we forgot about this file share, we forgot about, you know, this group of people that's got their own thing going on over here that we have to try and migrate up. So when we talk about the storage migration services vision, what it is, it's to migrate unstructured data from anywhere in the physical and virtual and IaaS, and then also be fast, consistent, and scalable. I'm losing my, my letters there for some reason. And it takes care of complexity. An elegant graphical workflow. Now I'm going to talk about that in just a second as well. So when you first get into anybody using the Windows Admin Center, right? The Windows Admin Center is now the future of what administration will be for Windows Server. If you're not familiar with it, if not, you're already using it, everything that they create at MS, at Microsoft today, has to have some kind of Windows Admin Center integration into it. That's come as a directive down from the top. So everything is that is server-based, that is anything to deal with the networking-based, all that kind of stuff, all has to go into or be compatible with the WAC. So the storage migration services is fully integrated into this, as you can see. Now I'm going to get back to this when I actually go through the demo of doing an actual transfer. So when we look at it, this is what it looks like. You have your on-prem, everything from 2003, 2008 R2, 2012 and 2012 R2, 2016 and 2019. And then you have your SMB shares on-prem. All of those OSs right there. This actually then, the storage migration services, all the data and config goes up to the migration services. It puts into, the metadata gets put into an ESE database. If you're familiar with an ESE database, it's a really fast, compact database used in Windows servers. Okay? And from there, it can go out to, you know, different locations. First off, you can go to an Azure File Sync server. Okay, I'm talking that you know, that other cloud. I have to blank out the letters for it. But then you also can go to the physical, right? A Windows Server physical, virtual machines, or blank stacks. You know, you can go there as well. And then finally, you can take a direct route directly into that other cloud, infrastructure as a service, and the file service as well. All right. Now, this is not to say that other cloud providers, such as this cloud provider or Google Cloud, cannot also be utilized, right? Because it's just SNMP shares. That's all it is. All right. So it works on the concepts of jobs. When it does a job, it does an inventory, a transfer, and a cutover. Those are the three things. That's the only thing it does. It discovers configuration, okay, and data on inventory. It does a copy of the data, it shares, and the security. And then finally on cutover, it subsumes, okay, there's supposed to be an S there, old services, servers, identities. I'm not sure why some of my letters are not coming through. But it must be something with this, laptop. Anyways, the one thing I want to point out here, though, is the copy of data on the transfer. There is never a point during this entire process where any data is deleted. Not even when you do the cutover, the data is never deleted. Your old data is always there. Okay? There will never be any intention of deleting any data during this process. You'll still have your old server, you'll still have your old file shares, and you can do what we want with them. You can throw them away, you can, hey, I got to back out of this thing, guess what? That machine's still there, light it up, give it the old IP back, give it its old name back, you're all set. Okay? So, the inventory is the first step. Inventory, there are no agents. Okay, there is no agent involved when you're talking about Windows servers. When you're talking about the other OSs that they'll be bringing in, of course, there will be a need for agents on some of those. And the reason is because some of those file systems, example, NDLM, NAS, SAN, they will require some kind of an agent in order to do that if they're not being served up via a common protocol like SMB, NFS, so on and so forth. And it runs from a Windows Server 2019 Orchestrator. All right, the Orchestrator is basically the brains of the whole thing, and I'll show you that. First step it does is it creates a job. It creates a job, it includes the volumes, okay? It does include on it. It scans the config, network volumes, OS info, gives you a full inventory of everything. And then it scans everything else, the SMB, the file counts, file size, share properties, and then it's ready to do the transfer, and that's the next step. So let's jump right into the inventory. What it looks like graphically is you have a box, you have a server, it has the Orchestrator service, a proxy service, and a database. Now, like I said, the database is just an ESC database. The Orchestrator is like the brains behind the transfer. It's going to consume all the metadata, it's going to understand what it's got to do. The proxy service is actually what can actually queue up the files and then put them off from source to destination. And what that does is if you're running that proxy service that runs on Server 2019, it can increase your data flow up to 50%. All right, so you can gain a speed of 50% over your overall data flow if you use a proxy. All right, and that's going to a 2019 server. But you don't have to use a proxy. All right, so those are the two servers that we would be actually, the proxy would be sending its data to. And in order to do that, you have to have these open in the firewall. Pretty basic. You're just talking about WMI, net logon, and file and print. All right? So when it actually looks like in the demonstration, I have 4 file servers. I have FSO1, FSO2. All right? Those two are the ones that what we call the source. On the other side that they're going to is going to be the new SMS 2019-02 and 2019-03. All right? So notice that I said 2 and 2. You can do 4 and 2. You can do 8 and 2. You can do 20 and 2. Any number of sources can go into either a single destination or multiple destinations. All right? So when the demo starts out, I'm going in and I'm just going in and connecting to the first one is the first 2019-01. All right? And Windows Admin Center, it gives you all this nice, pretty information about it on the overview. But I'm going to head right down over to the storage migration service over here. It's going to tell me that, hey, you don't have SMS enabled on this server. All right? Go ahead and just click install. That's all you have to do. It's going to install that service on there. And this is pretty close to real time. I'm not speeding this part up at all. I speed up the transfer part, but I'm not speeding this up. So this is how fast it actually works. Then it gives you an overview exactly what it's going to do. The 3 pieces that I'm talking about. All right. You can click there. All right. So this is the dashboard. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to create a new job. And when you create a new job, give it a name, whatever you want to call it. I call it demo. And then it comes up and asks you for information like credentials. Now, important to note here is include administrative shares. Why is that there? Because if you administrative shares, as you know, have different principles, security principles associated than a regular share. So we'd have to enter additional credentials to copy the administrative shares. Now, I'm going to add and scan for devices. These devices are going to be the ones that are going to be the ones that I'm pulling from. FS01. And I'm going to add FS02. These are the source servers now. And what it does is it goes out and it scans, okay, just to show you what it's doing. This is FS01. ipconfig, to note here, first of all, FS01, 140 is that address. That's what we want to remember. Okay, I have a bunch of shares. I have 2 shares, public and sales, just filled with miscellaneous files. If I go over to FS02, eventually I get over that. Oh, I'm looking at the shares. Yeah. FS02, I just created 1 file in a share. And that's just a picture of a smiley face. Just because I wanted to show it when I came over to the new machine. That's it. That's just 1 file. So back here, it's going to go out and scan. Now I'm going to show you what it's actually going to pick up on a scan. After it goes through its little thing. It's pretty quick, pretty quick. Okay, it tells you the size, how many files it actually found on there, and then it gives you all that information down here. It's going to give you everything from shares to the configuration, the network adapters, the volumes, the whole bit. It's going through and collecting all that information and putting it in the database. It gives you all the share details. Now, these are share details that not necessarily are just like out in the open. These are share details that you could modify via PowerShell, that you can modify via API. Some folks will go in there and do that, okay, and you won't catch that when you actually want to do a migration. Okay, it's going to show you the network and all the volumes. And it's going to do it for both machines. Okay? So that's the first part. That's the inventory portion of it. And then we get the transfer. Now what the transfer does is it copies data between nodes. It's multi-threaded, multi-server. You get 10 copy threads per node. That's default, but you can change that in the registry. It's serialized by server and a job, but it can do up to 100 jobs at one time. And it's many servers per job, like I had mentioned before. It copies over all security. Again, my letters are disappearing on me. And then it does retry, multipass, and then obviously deltas in order to handle that, you know, when you actually are going to do your cutover compared to when you have the data ready. So what transfer looks like? It maps the destinations, it maps the volume, skip shares, includes the source. It does the retry flags, preservation, checksums. It validates the transfer, it does a delta rerun, and it creates a report. And then it's ready for cutover. Now on the target, this is what it looks like. Okay? Again, the same thing, the proxy, the Orchestrator DB on a single server, and we're going between these 2 boxes, right? And the Orchestrator will go up to those and deliver those to those servers. All right? Again, you're going to need, you're going to need those open. The net login, same thing as before, WMI, net logon, file and print sharing. All right? Now, if you're using a 2012 R2 or a 2016 target, a little bit different. All right? That's where everything can go through the proxy services up to the 2019 box. This is where you get your intense increase in speed coming off of that old servers. You got to remember, this is just 2012 and 2016, right? Those are using SMP v2 or v3, whereas 2003 is still on SMP v1. Okay, so SMP v1 is going to crawl no matter what. All right, so it's going to use it can use the proxy as well, but most of that is going to be based off of the OS. The OS is going to slow that thing down. The protocol itself will. All right. Again, same thing with the shares that you need, the permissions you need to open on the firewall. All right. So this is going to be the actual setup of the transfer. The transfer, we're entering the credentials. We've already got all the data inventoried, right? All right, now it's going to say, what's your destination device? Is this going to be first, okay, for FS01, where are you going to send all the data from FS01 to? We're going to send it to 2019-02. It's going to scan it. It's going to say, okay, where do you want the volumes to go? And where do you want your shares? Do you want those actually included or not? Okay, so you can pick and choose. And it's going to give you the required space, tell you the available space, all that kind of stuff. Okay? Next thing you're going to do is you're actually going to go in and you're going to tell it, okay, now where do I want FS02 to go to? All right? I can put in another destination device, which I do. Now, I could say, uncheck this, include this device, and then it'll skip over it. It won't do it during that transfer. Same thing here. One thing I do want to note, notice this, save and exit. You can save where you are at the point that you're setting up this whole transfer at any point in time and then go back to it. You can adjust the transfer setting, retries, all that kind of stuff. And then you go through a validation. And what validation does is it makes sure that, number one, the file systems are compatible. Number two, that you can carry over all the security aspects and all that kind of stuff over to the new server without causing any problems. See, these are all the checks it goes through for validation. Okay? Now it's going to be ready to transfer. All right, it's ready to go. Let's start the transfer. So we're actually transferring data now. We're not deleting data, all right? We're just copying data. That's all we're doing. We go back to the actual the storage migration service screen. We can see it starting to process these files. Now we're only doing about 3 gig worth of data, so it's not showing a lot. But you can see this number climb. You're going to see a graph show up here on our actual running jobs and how much bandwidth throughput we're getting. But this screen will show you how your job is progressing. And eventually as it moves down, it'll continue to give you more information. Now, when you're all done, all 3 of these are going to be filled up. You're going to have reports that tell you about everything that happened, including how that was all handled in terms of throughput, all that kind of stuff. You've got even percent complete, 99% complete. FS01's already done. FS02 is almost done. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with that other cloud, but that other cloud, if you notice the IP addresses, we're actually running this in the cloud. We're not running it on-prem to the cloud or from the cloud down to on-prem. Why? Because egress and egress costs are first of all, but number 2, latency. I don't know if you guys have like huge pipes going up into that cloud, but you got to remember when you're doing that transfer, you're taking up a lot of bandwidth to do that. We do the cutover. We schedule, obviously, for downtime. There has to be a schedule for downtime. Why is that? Because when we actually start the transfer, we have to reboot those servers. Those servers have to be rebooted in order to be staged for the cutover. All right, so your users, you want to do it during a downtime or a maintenance window. It'll obfuscate the old source, right? It'll take everything from the old source, it'll obfuscate it, it'll say, it's still here, but your users can't see it anymore. It'll do a transfer and read-only, like I said. It'll only give you read-only on the destination, all right, on the transfer. Right now, this transfer is done, but it's that one is still read-only. The new ones are still, nobody can get to that yet, all right, until you actually do the cutover. It'll take over the name and Active Directory of the originating servers, the source servers, all right? And not only that, but it'll take over the network as well. So it'll have the same IP address. It'll have everything the same except for the MAC, obviously, because if you're talking physical, all right, it's going to be different. But it'll have the same properties. And then there's little or no user disruption. Now, obviously, you're going to reboot the box, right? So if you have a user that's in there doing something active, yeah, they're going to see a disruption. That's just the nature of the game. But if you have a user that just has a map drive to an SMB share, they're not going to notice anything. The reason is because when you come back from that, from a reboot, the drive just reconnects itself. And there's my warning about the reboots. So, cutover. We map the networks, we set the IP, set a new name. We put a max duration. Okay, so you're saying this cutover cannot last longer than X amount of minutes. It cannot last longer than 48 hours. It cannot last longer than 24 hours. And you have to validate. It'll go through that. It'll actually do the cutover, and then the job's complete. You're done with it. Now this is the separate Orchestrator scenario. All right, similar to what we had before. This is where you actually have a dedicated machine that's just doing the orchestration for you. All right? They're transferring data both ways. It goes to the new servers. These become obfuscated. Now, when we talk about the other scenario, and now my deck isn't responding. Whoops. When we talk about the other scenario, this is where you can run everything on one box. So if this is a 2019 server, you can run this entire system on one box. And you can have the source server go to the destination, all right? And it will transfer everything. When it comes to the actual transfer, remember it has to do a reboot on the cutover. I mean, on the cutover, not the transfer. This will remember where it left off after it reboots. It will remember everything, okay? Because it's all contained in that ESE database. And again, I think this laptop might have to be rebooted. I can't get it to advance. Come on. It won't advance.
Will it escape out?
Yeah. It won't do anything.
I think you need to finish with dialogue, Mike, and wrap it up.
I can't show the cutover. Oh, man. Thanks a lot for coming. I appreciate it. If you have any questions about the storage migration services, let me know. I had a lot more. NFS is coming. Just some of the things that are coming down the pipe. Right now, we can't do clusters. All right? That's one of the things that is definitely being worked on, because the gentleman who actually heads this, the principal PM, his name is Ned Pyle. He actually owns the cluster group as well. And he's like, I got a product that can't even support the other product group that I'm in charge of, right? So that doesn't make a lot of sense. So we'll be doing clusters. They'll be doing NFS. They'll be doing AFS, the Andrew file system, if you're familiar with that. They're going to be doing NAS, NDLMP. They'll be doing that. The goal is to basically do all the protocols that they can do, okay? But also all the sources and destinations they can do, right? So it's not going to be just MS based. It's not going to be just AZ based, all right? It's going to be, you know, GCP, Amazon, you name it. If you have a file share somewhere that can talk any of those protocols, you're going to be able to migrate it into another server, okay? And that's the simplicity that they want to get to, all right? So thank you very much for your time.